Hello, and welcome to As the CMMC Churns. I'm Matt Titcomb, the CEO of Peak InfoSec, an authorized C3PO, and a CMMC provisional assessor. Today's episode is Good, Fast, or Cheap? Pick one, punk. Yep, we're going to channel a little bit of Clint Eastwood, spaghetti westerns, and talk about CMMC. Who knew? So, let's start off on Good, Fast, and Cheap. We need to talk about the CIA Triad first. So for many of y'all that don't know the CIA Triad, this is at the foundation of everything we do in information security. It's about protecting your information, making sure it's not been tampered with, and then making sure you can still use it. You'll notice I've got a lurker in the background, so have fun with that one. Now, at this core of the CIA Triad is going to be everything that gets decided upon about how your business goes about doing these three major components. Now, we do that by looking at the level of effort and understanding different aspects when businesses are making this decision. However, we're talking about CUI. Now, CUI was done underneath 32 CFR, controlled on 32 CFR Part 2002 CUI. And that regulation codified that protecting CUI had to be done at a moderate baseline. Okay, what do you do with that? Well, all of a sudden, when they made that determination, that then forced the control selection. Now again, 32 CFR says that all non-federal organizations will use 800-171 as the controls to protect CUI that is being used outside the federal government. Now, NIST and the federal government fundamentally tailored NIST SB 853 to meet the federal government's requirements to meet CUI. Yep, to meet their requirements. They did not care about you in setting these requirements. Do not expect them to care about you in setting these requirements. Their job is to protect their information, not your business. Now, this also plays out in the overall way that 800-171 weighs against these three major pillars. 800-171 is fundamentally confidentiality centric. It's there to protect the information. Integrity plays a big part in that relationship. Availability? Nope, not at all. There's actually no requirements for backups, continuity plans, backup continuity, blah, blah, blah. The only one that's really availability is incident response. So if your servers go down, that's on you. If you can't meet a deliverable because your servers go down, that's on you. So this is where many of us within the information security community are saying, it would be nice if 800-171 was more balanced and kind of covered some of the availability requirements. I get it why DoD doesn't have them in there, and I get it why the federal government fundamentally don't have them in there. There's a cost for them to have them in there. That's on you. And they don't necessarily want to incur that cost. Now, in getting back to Clint Eastwood, there's this triad. And then there's the related triad that we're really talking about, which is the Acquisition Triad. So as a recovering government program manager, we live by this triad. Fundamentally, we are always asked and having to make trade-offs about good, fast, or cheap. If you go back and think of a rocket launch all the way back to the Apollo and even Gemini, etc., it was the cheapest rocket made fast that somebody survived in. Yeah, lowest cost, technically acceptable, is a viable acquisition methodology that optimizes cheapness and being good at the price of fast. So that's why taxes keep going up for the rest of us. That plays as an acquisition program manager in the trade-offs that we're making. Now, when this comes to you all in the fundamental approach, we have to keep reminding the acquisition triad rule of thumb. You're lucky if you get to pick two. Yep, 2. Lowest priced, technically acceptable, does not necessarily mean fastest. Typically, when you fast and you want good, you're doing a best value, which is going to be more expensive. So again, trade-offs in what you're looking to do and accomplish to meet your mission. Now, here comes CMMC. The game changes. Remember, this is good, fast, or cheap. Pick one, punk, because that's the choice you really get here. Now, when we merge and we look at the CIA Triad against the good, fast, cheap Triad, always remember the federal government did the risk determination. The federal government set the standard, and this is 800-171, and in the case of DoD, has enhanced the standard with the DFARS clause and with CMMC requirements. Again, enhancing, stepping up the standard is allowed. The federal government has set the evaluation criteria. Primarily, that's going to be NIST 800-171A, and the other criteria is going to fundamentally be the CMMC guides. So they're playing those two against each other. You just get to inherit their decisions. Sorry, that's the way it goes on this one. Now, when it comes to looking at the impact of that on the good, fast, cheap Triad, well, good. The federal government determined that for you. You have no choice in this space whatsoever. Fast, they're setting the overall timeline. You get to determine when you start. That's it. Now, if you know the end of the race is here and you're choosing to start later and later, you can see your timeline. Your choice. Pick. The other thing is when it comes to cheap, you get to pick the scope of your size of your environment. Now, cheap cost is fundamentally going to be a function of your scope and the time involved. Bigger scope, less time, more expensive. Smaller scope, more time, interestingly enough, cheaper. That's the way acquisitions really work. And most people don't think that way, and we think if we do a compressed, it's actually going to be better. Nope. So let's talk about the bad news for many of the organizations sitting out in the DIB today. You're blowing off getting ready. It's not going to be a fun conversation. So when it comes down to it, good isn't on the table for you. The federal government made that choice on your behalf. You're choosing to blow things off. So now you just took cheap off the table. You're left with fast. Now the acquisition rule of thumb number 2 kicks in. When you compress the timeline, you're going to compress the costs. Expand the costs and increase them, That's inevitable. You're going to pay for overtime. You're going to pay for more people to coordinate. You're going to need more people doing work that then have to coordinate with one another. And this increases your costs. So again, doing things fast is actually sometimes the worst way to do it. And many of y'all are choosing to do that. So, sorry, be ready to pay more. This is not something you should be delaying if you're worrying about your budget. So let's sum up. For CMMC, the federal government determined it all for you. You only get to control the size of your scoped environment and when you start. Those are the only aspects you control. So if you're planning on delaying getting ready, you picked the most expensive path. I know that's not what you want to hear, but that is the objective reality of what is really going on. If you want to reduce your costs, get started now. Reduce your scope as much as you can, but get started now. So I'm Matt Titcomb. Thank you for joining us for As the CMMC Churns, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.